And we were told that we weren't allowed to have porn. Okay. So I would come by every now and again and just do a quick health and welfare looking for porn. Everybody, Terrence Popp here with another episode of Live from the Lair. Now this next story I want to start off with, if everyone recalls back to the Second Gulf War, and one of the big talking points and one of the big points that actually influenced America to get involved and to invade Iraq was Saddam was stockpiling, NBC weapons, which later on everybody said no, there wasn't any there, and it caused all kinds of hooty-doo and drama. Well, this next story is going to curl your fucking tail feathers. By the time this happened, the 1st Platoon was basically doing convoy security every day. That was their mission. They, escorted vehicles between Victory and Abu Ghraib prison and some of the other FOBs that 202 MI had personnel on in Baghdad. And some of these were relatively far away. Now, on this particular day, I believe Fallujah had already taken place, the first one. But as we all know, what happened after the first Fallujah, we decided to stop fighting and let the Iraqi army handle it. Well, that did not happen, as we all know. 1st Platoon was on their way back from a mission on the freeway, and a large truck pulled past them, and one of the soldiers noticed that something was I don't remember what it was. Either there was something out of place, or they saw something leaking from the back of the truck, and they decided, fuck it, we're just going to pull this motherfucker over. So they pulled him over, opened the truck, and it is filled. You can't even go in there with UXOs. Old 500-pound bombs, all kinds of artillery shells, all kinds of landmines, hand grenades, crates and crates and crates of explosives. And then they come across some shells towards the back of the truck, which were old VX shells, and VX is a nerve agent. So they all freak out, and they must basically like, hey, fuck it, Nobody really went in. They're all just looking through, standing up looking in, and they could see them, in the back, because they were still on a pallet. And, everything else looked like it had, been taken, willy-nilly from all places that they were just left lying after the Iraqi army surrendered. But that pallet looked like it came from a storage area. So, they basically detained the truck, left it there. They called the sheriff like they're supposed to do. And they waited for 4.5 hours. And it was just about to get dark. You don't want to be on the road after it gets dark. So they basically, 1st Platoon, one of their guys, maybe it was 2 of their guys, get in the cab with the driver and have a 9mm at this guy's head and force him to drive to Abu Ghraib prison. And let me tell you, that was such a fucking hairy fucking thing, because Lord knows what the fuck was in the back of the, what kind of explosives were they already fired, were some of them armed, because a lot of those Iraqis they were stupid and they don't know how to handle that shit, and they were killing themselves all the time. With accidental discharges and IEDs that went off by mistake. So if one of these pieces of artillery shell, or whatever was back there, decided it was going to explode when we went over a bump or anything, not only would the people in that cab been vaporized because of the presence of those chemical agent rounds, that whatever was recovered of their dead bodies couldn't even be sent home to their loved ones. They'd be contaminated, they'd been incinerated to dust, and that would be the end of it. And later on, those two guys in that truck were put forward for Bronze Stars, and they were declined because the 202 MI basically put 90% of the Bronze Star quota, and I say quota because that's exactly what happened, for their officers, and most of them never even left the fucking wire. Okay, let's see. That is the weapons truck confiscation bullshit. I had to deal with one NCO, this second platoon sergeant, and he had a problem. Well, he probably still has a problem with this because he's an incompetent piece of shit. But before we left for Iraq, one of his team leaders, who was about 28 at the time, maybe 30, a little on the slow side, good guy, airborne infantry background. But second platoon wanted all their people to be like these Doberman pinscher guys that could just run like the wind, and this individual just wasn't built for that. So he was labeled a shitbag, and they took away his team position, and he was basically living in the doghouse. And this went on for months. There was no attempt to rehabilitate this NCO. There was no attempt to actually use this NCO and he was a staff sergeant in any kind of meaningful way. And by the time I became the first sergeant, I remember I pulled the second platoon sergeant aside and I said, listen, what we got is what we got. You cannot be putting people in the doghouse and keeping them there forever, especially over some fucking petty ass bullshit like you're doing. And I got the North and South, and I basically counseled him when I gave him his initial counseling. He signed it, blah, blah, blah. And I left. Well, it didn't stop. And it got to the point where this particular soldier was basically shunned away from his platoon, forced to stay in a barracks with local interpreters miles away from where his actual platoon was staying. And it was up near Mosul. Everybody thought Mosul was safe. Well, it really wasn't. Some crazy shit went on up there, and I'll get around to that down the road if find the people who actually want, and they could fill me in on the story. Anyway, because Mosul's, it basically had to fly a helicopter there, and it's like a 4-hour helicopter flight up to the very, very top end of Iraq. So, apparently he was the NCOIC of a scrapyard, outside, somewhere, near Kirkuk. What he did was just basically supervise them loading shit on trucks, driving it north into Turkey, and that was it. Well, one day, one of the trucks was turned back, and, he went out to see what the hell was going on, and he was a little bit too close. And apparently in this shipment of scrap was a seed reactor. And basically that's a reactor, it's radioactive, and there's a conveyor belt that runs underneath it, and actual seeds would run underneath it. Then they would plant the seeds, they would grow faster, and have a much bigger yield. Well, he got himself cooked by this radiation and got radiation poisoning. So he sends me an email. I find out what the fuck is going on. I get him to send me the actual, the sheet from the TMC that explained what it was. And I went absolutely fucking berserk. And I remember I talked to the commander, and, Worthless was like, I don't want to get involved in internal conflicts between platoon sergeants. And I'm like, all right, well, imagine this. What do you think is going to happen when we're watching one of our NCOs get his head sawed off in Al Jazeera because his own fucking platoon sergeant refused to bring him back into the fold and make him part of the platoon again? How do you think that's going to fucking play out? And then you got the, maybe you should handle it. And I'm like, fucking A right you are. So I sent an email to his, platoon leader, to him directly, to box up this NCO and all of his bags and baggage and have him on the goddamn airfield ASAP, because he's fucking gone. And if he doesn't stop treating his men like this, I'm going to fucking take them all away from him, and he'll be up there by his goddamn self. I get an email back, it's not your lane, don't interfere with me and my platoon, blah, blah, blah. But his platoon leader basically fucking broke it off in his ass and said, motherfucker, the first sergeant counsels you on a behavior and you continue to fucking do it. You didn't listen to me, and now one of your fucking E6s has radiation poisoning. Okay, he pulled out of it. He was sick for maybe a week, and but still, it's probably going to fuck with him for the rest of his life, and it was totally unnecessary. So I go to the 3rd platoon sergeant, and I tell him, hey, I got a NCO coming from 2nd platoon. You're going to work with him. You're going to fold him into platoon, and I don't want any fucking problems. And he basically says he'll do it, but, Messman's going to basically still be an E6, but he's going to have to wear an E5 rank because he doesn't want to cause any problems within the platoon. Now, I myself didn't agree with it, but it's his fucking platoon. So I'm like, okay. I tell Messman, hey, put on E5 rank for the rest of the deployment. You're still getting paid as an E6, but you're going to work in 3rd platoon as an E5. Which he did. Okay, and he performed flawlessly. It was basically a member of the team going out every other night, on reverse cycle and hunting Haji in the dark, and did a great job. Later on, when I left the unit, when we got back in 2005, I went to 20th Group Special Forces, which used to be in Chicago. And I basically hand-walked this particular NCO into the unit and got him a slot to go to selection. And this it was like 2 or 3 years later. It was like 2 years after that. And lo and behold, he went to selection and made it. And I believe he was 38 at the time. Which is fucking pretty hard. 38 is not an easy thing. Not only did he make it through selection, but a year and a half later, he walked for his Green Beret. So I sent an email to everyone who went on that deployment, who was still in the service. And actually, it was everyone that went there. And if they got the email, they did. And if they did, they didn't. I don't really care. And basically saying, here's this NCO that was fucking put in the doghouse, and everyone labeled a shitbag, and his platoon sergeant fucking basically wanted to get him killed. Just walked for his fucking Green Beret. And then I also said, if said platoon sergeant is upset by anything I said about him, which happens to be true, please call me. I left my number in there, in the email. I will come to wherever you are and issue you the closed head injury you so richly deserve. That guy was an absolute fucking piece of shit. And I cannot believe he did that and got his men fucking hemmed up and some shit like that. So that fucking was unbelievably fucked up. That's the scrapyard bullshit.
Want to retire someplace on the planet where the women look like this? I thought you did, but if you want to know how, first you need to go to MGTOWbooks.com and purchase MGTOW's Guide to Retiring on 200K in Southeast Asia. Don't forget to use the promo code POPP, that's P-O-P-P, for 10% off. A link is in the description.
And let's see. Another one. We're going to Victory. I'm with the company. We go to Victory, and we're there for like 3 or 4 hours. On the way out, we have to drive by this one basically huge field of tanks and armored personnel carriers that are left over from the first Gulf War. And there's barbed wire around them, and there's signs that says, danger, do not enter, blah, blah, blah. And lo and behold, Joe really was trying to get himself killed. Like, really, I don't know. When I'm looking over there, and I see 4 of my soldiers on the other side of the wire standing on a T-72, and everybody's taking pictures. And the first thing that runs through my fucking head is Gulf War syndrome, depleted uranium, all of that horse shit. And I run over there, and I'm like, get the fuck out of there! What the fuck? And I jump out of my skin, yell at him, Get the fuck in your vehicles, you dumbasses. And, and I had to do that probably 3 or 4 times because Joe tries like hell to get Joe killed. I don't know what to tell you. As a first sergeant, I had to do quite a few health and welfares. I know I've already covered a health and welfare story, but these health and welfares I conducted were not that bad. Now, if I found stuff, I really didn't make a big deal out of it. And we were told that we weren't allowed to have porn. Okay. So I would come by every now and again and just do a quick health and welfare looking for porn. And of course, I would find it, and I would take it and throw it in a Foot Locker. And those guys had some raunchy ass fucking shit, man, raunchy shit. And on this particular health and welfare, I go into this one soldier's hooch, and I flip over his mattress, and there's an Soviet sniper rifle with a scope, 2 magazines, big pile of ammo, AK-47. He's got one of those Tokarev pistols, probably 150 rounds for that. I don't say nothing. It's not my lane. I was looking for porn. I didn't tell him I was looking for weapons. Until, I remember I fucking around. He made himself a little desk, and I'm fucking around down there, and this hand grenade falls onto the floor. Now, my men were allowed to have hand grenades, but this was a Soviet hand grenade. And it didn't have any tape on it. It was just a fucking Soviet hand grenade. And I remember I look at the thing, I look at the soldier, I look at his team leader and squad leader, I'm like, what the? Look at it again, look at the soldier, look at the NCO, and I'm like, hey, that shit's dangerous. Put some tape around that. And on the way out of the room, I remember I told the NCO, I go, yeah, that needs to go away, because that's Soviet explosives, and we don't know how well it was made, and fuck that. So that night, apparently, it was thrown over the wall, and it was basically labeled a mortar attack. And we were getting attacked with mortars anyway. What's one more explosion of a hand grenade thrown over the wall? Didn't hurt anybody. They threw it over the wall where there was just piles of dirt, and it all worked out. Oh, now the porn thing. We had actually worked it out with some of the local Haji companies to have cable brought into, our TOC, our Tactical Operations Center. And on 2 of the TVs, 24/7, one was running news, and the other was running the fashion channel. And I swear to you, Med would come in at 2 in the morning and sit there for an hour and watch a fashion show, like one in Italy and one in France, and there'd literally be like 16 guys in there. They'll have their spit cups, and these women were like coming down the runway, doing a turn, and you can hear all the dudes like, ooh, oh yeah, she's a little too skinny, but I can take it. Hey, technically it's not porn, so Joe's gonna do what Joe's doing. All right, I don't even know how long this is going to be because fucking I had a interruption. Apparently, putting your phone on the do not call list doesn't mean shit anymore. But with that being said, you guys take it easy.